You keep saying you got something for me. You've been messing with the son of
Of course, I didn't know the depth of how rigged the show was until I was in it.
Welcome to the Prosperous Musician. Very, very thrilled to say that Grace Askew has agreed to join me today. Hello, Grace.
Hello, thank you so much for asking me. So I am a sixth generation Memphian, so I feel like there is something to that already. Being a Delta, Mississippi girl / Memphian, that there's so much music history as a part of that town, of my town. So I didn't grow up with musicians in my home. I just grew up with really creative people. Both, my parents were very entrepreneurial and were very supportive of whatever myself and my siblings wanted to do. But what really, from like day one, when I was real little, was writing was my first love before anything. And it wasn't until I picked up guitar at 13 years old, that's 21 years ago, that I fell in love with putting my word ideas with music. And I knew this is it. I found some kind of identity that I could hold on to, and it felt at home. And, I was kind of a loner, a shy kid. I didn't really know how to speak up for myself. So when I found music, it was like this friend that I could feel like super comfortable speaking up about, whatever I wanted to say. And it was my territory. And so that's basically throughout high school, and even in college, I was locked away in my dorm or in my closet, not really socializing, just being a loner and focusing on music, because that's just that's all I cared about, really. And I dropped out of college to pursue music. I was down in New Orleans for college and looking at, posters of Sun Studio and reading Johnny Cash's bio, Elvis's bio, basically falling back in love with Memphis. And that's what made me want to drop out and move back to Memphis. And I started playing the dive bars, and that's all there is really in Memphis to play. There's a couple of venues, but mostly it's smoky dive bars in Memphis. So that was my training ground, and that's how I got into touring on the road alone for 10 years. I've been touring over 10 years now in my big old truck all over the country. And I haven't been to Norway, but I would love to one day. And just been to the UK. And yeah.
Oh, you just been to the UK?
I have, yeah. I went to Scotland and I played Ayr, Scotland. I have a friend in Ayr.
Yeah.
And I played York and London. That was it. So those are my only tastes out overseas.
Wow. Well, I've also got I'm from the UK, living in Norway, so it'd be great to see you in the UK again. If I can help you get gigs over there, that'd be great.
Yeah. So I just, leading up to where I am now, where you kind of found me on the internet, was I just never given myself time or basically the permission to focus on my craft. I'd always worn all the other hats of like booking my own shows, doing all the marketing, coordinating co-writes or, whatever it was. I wasn't really focusing on the writing enough. So December 31st, 2017 is like my big aha moment of realizing I want to write a song a day. And so January 1st, I woke up and that's when it started.
So was that like apropos of something? Did you see someone else doing it, or you tried it before? Or?
I had been listening to a lot. I just needed some motivational kind of inspiration. So for those last couple months of 2017, I've been really avidly listening to Gary Vaynerchuk, who's like kind of like he's all about hustle and grit and like putting content out constantly and being prolific with your content. And I thought, well, let's put that in songwriters terms. What would that mean? That means to me, putting out a song every day. So that's how I kind of came about with this idea.
Yeah, he'd love you. It's all about that consistency, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so and did you just think, I'm going to do every day for a year, or are you just going to go every day for forever, or did you just have it? Did you have?
I had just a year. I just had a year cap because that's a very concise, time. And, at the end of that first year of accomplishing it, I wanted to keep going. So I did. And to the end of 2019 is when I finished the 2-year daily songwriting challenge. And that's through a lot of really dark things happening, you know, close friends dying, family member dying. Like I was pregnant, very pregnant near the very end of it. So it's really hard to even sing. So, but you know, all that goes to show, I just was kind of trying to exemplify that no matter what is going on in your life, you can carve out time to create. You know, it's not like you wait around to feel inspired. That's bullshit. The motivation is bullshit. It just doesn't exist. You have to put in the work and treat writing as a blue collar job almost.
That's brilliant. And so when you were starting off at the beginning, was there any, you mentioned obviously you kept going throughout it all. So was there any days where you really just you couldn't do it, or nothing came when you wrote, or you nearly missed a day, or what happened?
No, there were never days where I felt like I was about to miss, like I didn't have anything to say. I just knew that was always, there was never a problem with that. It was more just not feeling like it. I was exhausted. Every time I sat down, I just had this like inner trust that if I just started, I got going, I got my hand moving. Every single time without fail, there was this second wind. It was like the muse saw me, you know, sitting down to write and was like, oh, okay, she's taking this seriously. Let's do this. Let's go.
Yeah. Have you read the War of Art?
Yes. That book pissed me off. I like donated it to Goodwill. I didn't even finish it. I was like, it pissed me off. And then I repurchased it, of course, and it's amazing.
Because it's kind of what you're saying in that, isn't it? It's just that, exactly what you're saying. Yeah, there isn't like this, well, there is a muse and stuff, but it's there. It happens when you actually start to do the work. You don't wait for it to come, then work. You work and then it joins you. Sometimes it might not, but you carry on.
Every time.
Yeah. Wow. So did you find in terms of because you do like a process where you've got like, you have 10 words, or you get given 10 words, you ask people for like 10 words, which is a great way of connecting with people as well, isn't it? Because you're involving people in the process. So did you start off like that, or you just literally?
I didn't. That trick, that tool, I don't even know why I tried it, but it was early on, very early on in the process, that I decided one day to do it. I think it was maybe day 29 or something. Maybe even day 10. I think it was day 10 of the Daily Songwriting Challenge that I tried that, and it became like my hallmark of what I'm doing. It became the thing that sets me apart from, you know, a lot of songwriting kind of advocates out there, because I realized how much constraints actually help the creative process flow forward and move forward and give it momentum. When you sit down, you have this universe of ideas, of options to work with. But if you give it these 10-word constraints, that gives you a starting point very easily right off the bat. You can get going.
So we talked a bit about this, how you've kind of really sort of found your voice on Instagram, but this is a really tenuous link now. But also you've been on The Voice as well.
Yes.
So tell me about that, how that happened.
My mother kept prodding me to do it, and I didn't care. I did not care at all about that. I didn't even watch the show. I walked in and I did a Tom Waits song for my audition. And
which song? Which song did you do?
"Make It Rain" is what I cover the most. I do my own kind of flamenco version of it, but the producers of the show were like, maybe can you like play something that General America might know? And so I played like an Elvis. I did Hound Dog. I do my own version of Hound Dog, and then I did like a Black Keys song. And so then I, you know, got the call a couple months later. I was not nervous. I didn't care if I got on or not. So maybe that helped. I guess that's what helped. I was just myself. And so then I got to the final 32, and it was, you know, people ask me, do I regret doing it? And I never would ever in a million years regret doing it, because it's the one chance, it's a chance in a lifetime to like prove who you are, you know? Like the amount of pressure and the amount of spotlight that is put on you is insane. And it just really makes you step up your game, and your confidence level is tested. And to me, it really helped with my stage presence a lot. I was a little more timid on stage before, and they have, you know, it's 3 months of training for 90 seconds of your life. So.
Had you done anything like that before? Because obviously you've been a touring musician, and
I was a road dog, man. Yeah, that was my persona. I was like a rough and tumble. Like I was traveling the country by myself. Like I said, living in motels and playing CD dev bars. That was my like thing. I was trying to be like my heroes, Tom Waits and Townes Van Zandt, and living that life like thoroughly. And so to go on something like The Voice was very against at the time what I was standing up for, but I'm so glad I did it now. Like I said.
So what came as a result of that, like being on The Voice? I know you've talked about how it affected you in terms of like your confidence rose, and I guess you got to see what the kind of industry's like a bit at that level.
Oh,
So was there any kind of surprises there, anything you kind of wasn't expecting when you were in the process?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I didn't know the depth of how rigged the show was until I was in it, and it was like extremely, all the strings were being pulled behind the scenes, like puppetry. You know, it was just like, wow, this really is a TV show, and very TV show decisions were made, especially in my final round. You know, and right when you
can you give some examples, or
like when I lost that final knockout round to the Swan Brothers, they immediately send you to a psychologist right after you get off the stage. Like you go straight to a therapist, and they're like, how are you feeling? How are you handling it? And they were just like, I was just like, I can't believe I lost to that. You know, it was like, what they were like, well, they just wanted the first brothers to go to the finals. That was a very TV show decision, you know, so they wanted a brother team to go to the finals. So, and you know, they're good singers, but, you know, I could see all my artist friends that I thought were truly artistic being kind of cut, and they wanted more moldable kind of people. Granted, there are some phenomenal people on that show that I still keep in touch with to this day. I mean, ridiculous talents. But anyway, I just, by the end, I was ready to go. You know, I could feel how fake it was, and it wasn't my thing, you know. But, you know, I left that show feeling like, you know, on another level performance wise. Not many artists get to have national spotlights on them for that amount of time. And I'm very grateful for that.
So what's that feeling like when you would go out for that performance for the, well, what was the feeling like when you got kind of spotted, or forgive me, I haven't seen the audition round. What was that like when you had however many people turn for you and all that kind of stuff? What was that kind of moment like?
It was like, oh, I guess that means I'm on the show. It was just really surreal. It felt like so fake, and like I was in a dream, you know, because you walk out on in a pitch black room in a 500 seat audience, and you can't see much. You can kind of see people down there like rooting for you, but it's dead quiet. And so you just see this person in the back kind of flagging you to start, and all the lights come on, and it's just this roar, and it's just like this most intense sensory overload experience. And then Blake and then Shakira turned around, and I was like, oh my God, so I guess this is happening. I'm on the show. And it's all very rigged before the producers know who's going to turn around. They even ask me before I step on stage who I'm going to pick. So, you know, it's just, they know everything for the most part. I don't know how it runs now, but you know, I can only imagine it's about the same. So.
Wow. So they know who's going to turn. They rehearse who's going to turn.
I'm pretty sure they do. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And they asked you before you went out.
They were just like, who do you think you'll pick? You know, who do you think you'll pick? And I think they had me pegged as the June Carter kind of character. Everyone's a character for sure on this show. Yeah. You're a personified version of yourself. So I was the June Carter kind of character of the show, and very fittingly, you know, goes with Blake. So
yeah. So what was that like? I mean, was Blake a kind of somebody you looked up to or was aware of at that time, or you been?
No, I didn't listen to his music. I don't like his music. I don't really appreciate that pop country, bro country, whatever you want to call it. But I do like him as a person. He was fantastic, just really all around great guy. Really genuinely kind person for sure. Off camera, he was so nice.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of, I mean, were you online at that point? Were you kind of doing Instagram and things like that before The Voice, or was that something you did after?
Yeah. I mean, of course. Yeah. You see your, you know, followers explode within hours, or maybe, you know, after your audition airs, you see it just skyrocket. So it's cool to see.
So what did you get? What kind of numbers were you before you went and then came out?
I mean, maybe a couple thousand, and then it just went, you know, gradually up from there, just like a couple thousand within an hour. So
And these are people. These are people.
It's not what I was on the
with.
show for, but yeah.
No. So I mean, did you have like things in set up? So obviously you've got an Instagram presence, things like that. Did you do some recordings? Did you had like albums out and things like that? People could.
I did release a single, and that single went on to win the John Lennon songwriting contest, and that was my one thing I took advantage of. I wish I kind of taken advantage of that moment more and released more of a full album. But about a year after The Voice, I released a full Sun Studio recorded album that I did in Memphis. And that was real janky, raw, just like paying homage to my roots is what I wanted to do right after the show happened. So yeah, that's one of my favorite albums for sure. It's not my all-time favorite. My newest album is my favorite, but cool. Yeah, and it's just that whole time I was just learning more and more also how to stand up for myself as a female in the industry. It's a very male-dominated industry, and looking back, there are moments where I definitely see myself not speaking up as much as I could have, both in the voice world and just in the studio and Sun Studio, and just kind of feeling like there was a domineering element with a lot of the males I've worked with in the past that I didn't see at the time. It's like hindsight's 2020, but now I'm just like realizing I want to work with more women. It's just how I've had to kind of get through. But I love the title of your podcast, The Prosperous Musician. That's a great way to see. I want to see my friends prosper,
Yeah, and that means it's not just all about money and stuff. It's about just shining, isn't it? And like you say, being recognized and doing whatever is true to you at that time. And whatever that means, success is very different for everybody, isn't it?
Yes, that's actually what I wanted to have. I have a podcast. I've been working on it lately, but season 2, I would love to talk to you about that. Just everybody's definition of success. That's really interesting to me.
Yeah. So what's yours?
I think it's being prolific. I think it's creating as consistently as you possibly can. All of the greats in whatever medium it is were extremely prolific, and that's their legacy. They left behind so much for the world, and that's all that matters. That's the only thing that's actually luckily in our control. It's the best part, you're in control of that. And I'm actually writing a book about it right now, about like what I learned from the daily songwriting. And that's chapter 1, is like the craft is in our control. Focus on that,
So is there anyone that you kind of not follow, but what are you kind of songwriting inspirations when you're kind of writing? Are you just following the muse, or have you got like a real kind of sound that you're going for?
It's kind of both. I mean, I definitely have an aesthetic, and I have a style that I've developed from 20 years of doing music, but it's just really, I ride the flow of what I'm feeling that day.
So we've gone off piste on the questions a bit, really, but I think we've covered some of them as well. So let's just flip over to when you were talking about your early on touring, when you were sort of just traveling around. Did you say you had a van or something, or were you just getting on the bus and traveling around?
No, I mean, I had my truck. I had a big old F-150. Now I have an F-350 diesel truck that I live in on the road, basically. Okay. Granted, it hasn't happened lately at all because of COVID, that's been my bread and butter for years and years. And it's something that's a lot of work for a little bit of return. And I'll explain what I mean later when we talk more about the songwriting. But touring is a lot of work. It's hard work. And I'm doing it as an independent artist. I have had a booking agent in the past, but he was sleazy and stealing money from me. It's kind of the classic story, like the agent stealing the money for cocaine, basically. But I broke off.
Great song, good song out of that, maybe.
I know, right? Exactly. But I mean, it was just a joy. I was single. I didn't have anything tying me down. I didn't have I wasn't married. That's what also made it much more of a doable thing. Now that I've been married now for 3 years, and got a 1-year-old, it's much harder. But I think your identity as an artist is meant to shift, and it's meant to evolve through time. I was never meant to be this like rambling road dog for my whole life. Like that would be a little sad, honestly, if I stayed that way for into my late 50s and I was like playing I don't know. I just don't see that as a sustainable career in the first place.
Well, especially now.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Rambling Road Dog. See, these titles, they're just pouring out of you. I guess
Yeah.
So I guess what I was getting at was for people who are watching this. I mean, like myself, I before the COVID struck, I was on the road and I was traveling around a bit, not in a truck or anything, but I was doing gigging every weekend and stuff. So if somebody is like wanting to do that now, things like in the UK, for example, things are opening up again and gigs are opening up and venues are opening. And somebody's watching this and going, actually, they're at that stage in their career where they want to go, yeah, I just want to do that. I want to get in a camper van and just travel around and busk maybe, or just get gigs. And so what would your kind of advice be to them to how to sort of make the most of that?
I would say don't do what I did and go all over the country. First, focus on getting big in your hometown, and then maybe go off into the little towns that are maybe like the kind of radar loop of that town, and then go out further there. Like just slowly build out. And because it's so hard to build a following if, like me, you were just going all over in scattered little spurts to all these towns all over the country. Like it didn't ever really support what I was trying to do. And by staying in Memphis, which I did, I've played Memphis a lot through the years. I've gradually got my name out there, and I became, it's kind of a small town, so a big fish in a small pond, so to speak. But I think that's the way smarter way to go about it. It does sound glamorous, and it feels glamorous, and it was adventurous, no doubt. And I got a lot of my street cred that way, as being this like road dog and as a writer. But you don't have to do it. It's not a requirement. It's way smarter to start where you're planted.
And so what were your kind of so have you always played by yourself, or have you played in bands or as a duo or anything like that?
Mostly solo, but yeah, I have bands in New Mexico and in Memphis, and I'll pick up guitarists in Texas or Oklahoma, just ask friends who of a great guitarist, I could just jump in on this gig. But I do like playing for sure. And now that I've kind of been doing it more, is having women on stage with me is just an incredible feeling. I didn't know it until recently. I started having backup singers, 3 women. I'm like, holy crap, I wish I started doing this earlier. Just to have that support of the sisterhood on stage is just amazing. Because it's like I'm playing with men constantly. Like I was always trying to fit in with the guys and partying as hard as the guys and like drinking as under the table, and you know what I mean, like and it wasn't, that's just not the way to live for a long-term career. So that's just the way I see it.
So have you got any brothers or anything like that? Were you sort of growing up in a man's world? Are you kind of used to that? Was it something you
I
had
was
to
close
learn
to my brother. Yeah, we're like Irish twins, like 18 months apart, so we're really close. And then my older sister is 6 years older, so we weren't as close. We're close now, but yeah, I mean, I had a younger brother, and that was my friend growing up, and and then my dad was just always very easygong and supportive of whatever I wanted to do.
Oh, I just want to backtrack slightly to your when you went to Sun Studio. So was that what was that experience like? Obviously, being into like Elvis and Johnny Cash and having all that kind of myth around it. What was it like when you got there?
Yeah, I mean, I fell in love with it when I was like 19 and did my first little tour of it, and I always wanted, as a dream, to go back one day and record an album. So it was a dream come true for sure. We had Matt Rossbang as the engineer, and I had my usual guys, playing backup, and it was live. And except for bass, we had to overdub bass. So he was kind of driving the caboose, so to speak, because I thought I didn't want bass on the album, and then that was a mistake. So we added upright bass later. But yeah, it was like, it's Sun Studio. So it's like you're ready, you're set. Like you have that Sun Studio sound. So, and if you're ready to go with great songs and you've rehearsed, it's going to be fluid. It's going to be such a cool process, an easygoing experience, because it's Sun. Like the sound already is built in with just this phenomenal magic.
Great. And so what's the plan now then? So obviously you kind of obviously your situation's changed. You've got a little one, you've got a little family, and so what's the plan now? You sort of doing the recording?
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing better now than I have ever financially, because I'm going more into the songwriting coaching world, because I'm using all the things I've learned from creating every single day and using it to implement one-on-one coaching for other songwriters in their own life. And it's people who you don't have to have written a song in your life to work with me. It's helping people just realize it doesn't have to be overwhelming. Creativity it can be very fluid and fun and easy. and I want to help them learn to see that way as well, and be prolific. So that's what has become my bread and butter now, because touring is cut out, and I don't want to lean on my art anymore to pay the rent, so to speak, because that's my art suffers. If that's Elizabeth Gilbert, is I'm pulling from her quote. She firmly believes that as well. Like, just artists who have to lean on their art to pay the rent or pay the bills. It's just the art can suffer. So I'm really happy to have found a way to support myself and also just help change people's lives in some way, some small way. You know, songwriting is therapy for a lot of people, and especially if you sit down and you finish a song. That's like the most mood boosting, serotonin elevating experience you can possibly give yourself. It is it's huge. So that's been my big kind of conquest lately is focusing on that. Coaching.
So if you and I were doing a session now, like a coaching session, how would that? I mean, you don't have to do the whole thing, but what's your kind of what are your kind of top tips for people who want to get started? And
yeah, it'll be through Zoom. So it's just virtual, and which is great. It could be from the comfort of your home. And I send you 10 random words like minutes before we start. So you don't have time to formulate anything in your head. It's fresh to me.
Sneaky.
It's fresh to that person. And we jump in and we don't have a get to know you. Because this is like how it works in the real world. Nashville co-writes in my publishing company. We jump in and write. So we get to work. And we have an hour time limit. Usually we write in under 30 minutes with most clients who get really good. But we just use the 10 words, and it gets the flow going. And some people even sit and watch me write for the first like 2 sessions because they just want to see how it works. And while we're writing, I'll explain why this needs to happen or this doesn't need to happen, or like the melody needs to shift, you know? So it's like you're learning through actually doing instead of sitting there on YouTube listening to lectures on songwriting. I don't learn that way. And I don't think a lot of people really truly learn that way. So I think that's what sets me apart is just we learn by doing.
And your process now. So how many songs I'm trying to work it out with the maths, but how many songs? Over 600?
We're almost to
700, 800?
Yeah, it would be, let's see, 730. It would be like over 800 at this point. But I've also done co-writes outside of it. So 1,000 was more accurate right now.
And what are the kind of standout songs that the ones that you are these the ones that are on the record that you're doing, or have you just written other ones for the record?
I wrote other ones for the record. They weren't part of the Daily Songwriting Challenge. Those were Nashville bookings through a publishing company with fantastic, I always try to write with people that are a little bit better than me, just to keep my game, better. But and a lot of the times with this other record, Denim and Diesel, I just sifted through the first, 90 days and picked the top 12, and that became the record. So I have this plethora of content that I can go back to and just make better and polish and put towards a record.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I heard, what's the producer's name? Oh, it's out of my head. He's got like a big beard. Rick Rubin. He talks about that when he works with an artist, he gets them to write like 2 albums worth of stuff, or 3 albums worth of stuff, and the rest of it just it's just, if you write an album, you write 3 albums and you select it all from that. Right. And just as you said, just get in there and start writing from the beginning. Don't overthink it. Just do it and see what comes out.
Yes.
What are your kind of favorite songs out of that? Out of all those sessions, do you think?
The co-writing sessions.
Well, just all of the stuff that you've done so far.
There was one song. It was during the Daily Songwriting Challenge, like in 2018. I was hired on to model for Stetson hats, and it was a 2-day photo shoot throughout New Mexico with Heath Herring. He's an amazing photographer. And one of the photo shoots, we had my truck pulled over on the side of this desert highway, and I was sitting on the tailgate with my guitar and all my gear in the back. It was a really cool photo. And I was supposed to pretend that I was writing. And I actually did just sit down while he was like getting his gear set up, and I started writing the song of the day. And that became one of my favorite songs that hasn't been put on a record yet, but this coming record, I definitely want to add it. But yeah, and I wrote the song in, 15 minutes as he was just taking photos of me writing. And it's just one of my strongest, like simplest songs. Simple songwriting is so hard to do, but it's like when you're under pressure and a time constraint, I write so much better working under pressure like that. I can't sing the praises enough about just adding constraints to your craft to become better. So yeah, that's one of my favorite songs, and it's just this moment that I didn't expect to happen, and it happened.
Amen to that, because I when I started following your challenge, I have to say I failed miserably after about 20 days, but that was the longest I'd ever done, that stretch. And I will return to it. I think for me, what the pressure was that I think for me it needs to be like a 7-day challenge or 30-day, because when I started to think I've got to do this for a year, it kind of freaked me out. And it put more pressure on, if you know what I mean. So
yeah, and that's yes, yeah. I totally understand that. And a lot of people ask if I ever felt that way, but I guess the best way to mentally handle it is to just focus on the one song of the day. Yeah. Take it one day at a time, as they say, and it's the process over the product, because the product of 365 days of songs is overwhelming. I mean, I would freak out if I really sat down and thought about it. But if you just focus on falling in love with that daily little habit, the process of sitting down and write a song, you're golden.
So was there like a time of the day that's best? Do you now, or did you do that at the beginning? You go, right, this time of the day is, I'm going to do it in the morning, or was it just like any time of day?
Yeah, I mean, the mornings when I'm freshest. I'm not a night writer at all, just because I have a son now. And by the end of the day, I'm like brain dead. I don't want to do anything. So, I mean, I can, and I've had to write songs after doing that Stetson photo shoot. One of the days, there was 16 hours of driving all over the state to do a photo shoot, and then I hadn't written the song yet on that particular day. And I got to the motel and just slammed it out in 15 minutes and live streamed it and went to bed. So some days it requires me to not, have my specific, like, wonderful aura of the morning, but like you see those Bob Dylan documentaries of him sitting in a crowded room with, people chatting and drinking, and he's just sitting there writing, and he's oblivious to the world around him. And the best writers don't need special circumstances to write. You can write whenever you are, however you are.
I was surprised when I followed that, because I did that. I didn't get the 10 words, but I just set the timer for 30 minutes and sat down and I finished the song in like 20 minutes. And
that's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
Didn't happen every day like that, but it was certainly, like you say, more. It's kind of it feels counterintuitive, because you think that you need all this time to do it, but then, like you say, that actually, if you try and squeeze it in the least amount of time, you're more likely to get something out.
It's so true.
If you book a whole day in a studio.
Yeah, exactly. It's the path of least resistance. If you open up the gates to endless time, if you give yourself those constraints, it's like you have to be innovative. All right, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Take care. Bye.